What happens when horror stops trying to reinvent vampires and instead completely reimagines what they're capable of? Because today's horror news feels darker, stranger, and way more psychological than usual. What's going on, horror heads? I'm Travis, and this is the Final Cut, your daily pulse in horror. Today, we're talking Pascal Laugier returning to vampire horror with Nocturnal, a psychedelic revenge thriller set in the Amazon called Bloodwood, and Vietnamese horror continuing to rise globally with The Scourge. Let's get into it. Pascal Laugier is officially stepping back into horror, and honestly, this sounds like one of the most ambitious vampire projects we've heard in a long time. The Martyrs, an incident in a Ghostland director, is teaming with Slender Man and Elle writer David Burke for a new vampire horror film titled Nocturnal. And this is not your standard gothic vampire story. The film is set in 1943 during World War II and follows a group of refugees fleeing Vichy, France, who become stranded on a supposedly abandoned island. Only the island is hiding something ancient, something undead. One by one, the survivors begin transforming until the remaining human member of the group is forced to survive among the monstrous society her former friends have become. And honestly, the comparisons being thrown around here are fascinating. Burke says the film has much in common with Lord of the Flies and Picnic at Hanging Rock as it does traditional vampire cinema. That alone tells you this might lean more psychological and emotionally disturbing than action heavy. Pascal Laugier even said he's never seen a vampire film quite like this before, and coming from the guy behind Martyrs, that statement carries a lot of weight. The project is aiming to shoot this fall in Latvia. So horror heads, my question for you guys, do you want vampire horror to go back to being atmospheric and psychologically disturbing instead of action focused? Let me know your answers in the comments ahead.
Finished my last horror game. Nothing left to play. Then I found Fanatical. Insane deals on games every day. Link in bio.
Meanwhile, another psychological horror project heading to Cannes is taking audiences deep into the Amazon jungle, and this one sounds absolutely brutal. Bloodwood stars Garrett Dillahunt, Michelle Hurd, and Henry Eisen Cusick in what's being described as a psychedelic psychological thriller inspired by Heart of Darkness. The story follows a grieving man traveling into the Amazon rainforest to hunt down the trafficker responsible for his wife's death. A lot going on there. But as he journeys deeper into the jungle, reality itself begins breaking down. Memory, time, perception, everything starts collapsing around him. And honestly, the detail that caught my attention most here is that the production worked directly with the foundation and consulted Shitpoo traditions for authenticity in that region. I believe it's called ayahuasca. That tells me the film is probably aiming for something more spiritually unsettling rather than just visually trippy. The director even described the story as asking, when a man goes into the wilderness hunting a monster, which one is supposed to come back? Yeah, that's the kind of line that immediately tells you this isn't just survival horror, it is a descent into madness. And those are usually the films that stick with people the longest. So, my question for you guys, what scares you more in horror films? Monsters or psychological collapse? Let me know your answers in the comments ahead.
Streaming had nothing worth watching. Then GRUV showed up. New Blu-rays, new steelbooks, physical media I actually own. Link in bio.
And finally today, Vietnamese horror just keeps leveling up internationally. A new horror film called The Scourge is heading to the Cannes film market, and it's one of the first feature films ever adapted from a Vietnamese video game property. Now that's what we're talking about. Crazy original, and the game already exploded online with over 60,000 downloads. Massive Steam success, millions of YouTube views, and a 94% positive audience rating. Go get that on Fanatical right now. The story centers around a cursed apartment complex in 1990 Saigon. I believe somebody's writing a graphic novel about that area right now. Who could that be? Where a young man returns home after discovering his mother may be possessed. I ain't writing about that though. And as he investigates further, he uncovers forbidden rituals tied to Vietnamese urban legends and the spirit world. I'm about to go download this game. Hold on for a second. What's really interesting here is that Vietnamese horror is becoming one of the fastest rising forces in global genre cinema. Films like The Medium, Incantation, and now The Scourge, and we were talking about a film yesterday as well. They have proven audiences are hungry for supernatural horror rooted in cultural folklore rather than recycled Western formulas. And honestly, that's one of the healthiest things happening in horror right now. We're seeing entirely different fears, different myths, different spiritual ideas, and it's making the genre feel unpredictable again. So, final question of the day: which international horror scene is putting out the best work right now, folks? Korea, Japan, Indonesia, Vietnam, France? Let me know your answers in the comments ahead. Today's take. One thing I'm noticing lately across horror studios are moving away from safe. These projects feel weird again, dangerous again, emotionally uncomfortable again. Whether it's psychological vampire horror, which I'm all about, spiritual jungle nightmares, which I don't want nothing to do with because it's going to be bugs, or cursed apartment folklore, which I'm probably living in right now, horror feels like it's embracing atmosphere and dread over just jump scares. And honestly, that's when the genre is at its best. For that Spotify poll question today, which upcoming horror project sounds the most interesting to you? Nocturnal, Bloodwood, The Scourge? Actually, which one of those sounds like a new metal band or a hard rock indie emo band? Like, that's what I would say. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that thumbs up, subscribe, turn on notifications so you don't miss a single episode of the Final Cut. You can also follow us on the socials at HMUNCUT. Follow me at Travis Nyquil with an extra L at the end on X, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you stream your horror news daily. And if you need to tell people, tell them about us so they can get daily horror news too. And if you've got breaking horror news, trailers, or indie projects you want featured on the show, DM us directly. It may end up on the Final Cut. That's going to do it for today's episode of the Final Cut, your daily post in horror. I'm Travis. Stay sharp, stay strange. We'll be back tomorrow to already wrap up the week. I can't believe we are halfway through May so far, but you guys know the deal. We'll be back to do it again. Same deal, same updates. Until then, keep the lights on.
Want real horror coverage? Horror Movies Uncut. Smartest reviews, best interviews, no fluff. HMUncut.com.